The woman with no name. The sun rose slowly over the village of Embo, stretching golden arms across the river like it was brushing its sleepy face. Smoke curled gently from small huts, roosters crowed without apology, and the sound of mothers calling their children floated through the humid air. Life in Embo looked peaceful from a distance. But not for everyone. In a crooked little hut on the village's edge, lived a woman the people simply called the Nameless One. Her real name was Amalie, but few remembered it. Amalie was old. Her back curved like a question mark, her fingers thin like dry roots, and her eyes held stories that even the wind had forgotten. Her skin, dark and wrinkled from time and sun, shimmered faintly with the oils and powders she mixed by hand. Every morning she would wander through the fields and forests nearby, her basket creaking under the weight of herbs and roots. She had knowledge, deep knowledge, of plants that could heal fevers, cure coughs, calm angry spirits, and maybe even mend broken hearts. But knowledge, in Embo, was dangerous. Especially when it lived in the hands of an old woman who muttered to trees and sang to her potions. When the harvest failed, the blame came quickly. Crops wilted. The river shrank. Goats were born sickly. The people whispered. She cursed the fields. She's a witch. She's the reason our children are hungry. No one questioned the weather. No one blamed the greedy village chief who had sold the best land to a passing merchant. No, it was easier to point fingers at the silent woman with dried leaves in her hair and jars of strange-smelling ointment. One morning, just as the mist was lifting from the grass, the village council stood at her door. "You must leave, old one," the chief said. His voice was hard, but his eyes refused to meet hers. "The jungle is wide and empty. Take your poison with you." Amalie didn't argue. She looked into their faces, all of them younger than her, all of them blind in their own way. Then she turned back into her hut. Quietly, she packed what little she had, some herbs, a small woven mat, a flask of river water, and her mother's walking stick, carved with patterns of snakes and suns. She didn't cry. But the air around her did. The wind groaned through the trees. The river bubbled louder than usual, as if trying to speak up on her behalf. But no one listened. She was walked to the edge of the forest and left there, alone. The jungle before her was called the Whispering Wilds. No one went in willingly. They said it was cursed, that those who entered were swallowed whole by vines or driven mad by spirits. Amalie didn't flinch. She looked once over her shoulder at the village that had turned its back on her. Then she took her first step into the shadows. It was like stepping into another world. The sun vanished behind thick green leaves. Air pressed against her skin like hot breath. Insects buzzed in a language too fast to understand. Every plant seemed to breathe. Every branch creaked like it had a secret. Amalie walked until her legs wobbled, then she walked some more. She fought through tangles of roots, slid on moss-covered stones, and whispered apologies when thorns tugged at her clothes. Her flask grew lighter. Her basket heavier. At night, she rolled herself in her mud beneath the belly of a huge fig tree and listened to the jungle hum. The darkness here wasn't empty, it was alive. Eyes blinked from the bushes. Creatures called to each other. Something large padded through the brush, unseen but felt. Still, Amalie didn't fear. She felt watched, yes, but not haunted. The jungle seemed to be testing her, not fighting her. Like a grandmother checking if a child is strong enough to carry firewood. She spoke to the trees. "I mean no harm," she said softly. "I was thrown out, just like a spoiled fruit. I've come only to survive." On the third day, hunger made her dizzy. She sucked moisture from leaves and chewed bitter roots to quiet her stomach. She had found a small stream and bent low to drink when she heard it. A sound. Low. Broken. Wounded. Not a growl. Not quite. Amalie froze. The noise came again, a mix between a whimper and a rumble. Her heart pounded. Whatever it was in pain. Against every rule of survival and logic, she followed it. She pushed through hanging vines and thorny branches until she came to a clearing. And there, under a beam of dappled sunlight, lay the most terrifying and beautiful creature Amalie had ever seen. A lioness. Her golden fur was smeared with blood. Her flank rose and fell in shallow breaths. One of her hind legs was twisted in a crude metal trap, half rusted but sharp. The lioness's eyes met Amalie's, amber, wide, alert, and filled not with rage, but something else. Something sad. Something desperate. Amalie didn't move for a long moment. The trap had likely been left by some forgotten hunter. It bit into the lioness's leg like a snake with metal jaws. Blood soaked the ground beneath her. The smart thing would have been to run. But Amalie hadn't done many smart things in her life. She stepped forward. "It hurts, doesn't it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I know. I've been trapped too." The lioness growled faintly but didn't lift her head. Her body twitched with effort, but it was clear she was too weak to fight. Amalie crouched low and slowly took off her scarf. She held it up like a white flag. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said. "I've healed children and fools, birds and spirits. I can help you too, if you let me." And just like that, the jungle went quiet. Even the birds paused to listen. Amalie crept closer, inch by inch, murmuring gentle words. She reached the trap and gasped at the damage. It had cut deep. Bone showed through. Infection was already brewing. She could smell it. It would take more than courage to free this creature. It would take strength, something Amalie didn't think she still had. But the jungle had made her tougher than she'd realized. Using her walking stick and a smooth stone, she jammed open the trap just enough for the lioness to pull her leg free. The lioness let out a sound, more scream than roar, that echoed into the trees and startled birds into flight. Then she collapsed. Amalie scrambled to her side, pulling leaves from her basket. She chewed a bitter herb and spat the pulp onto the wound. She mashed roots between stones and whispered old healing songs, words her grandmother had taught her under moonlight. Night fell again. Amalie didn't sleep. She stayed by the lioness, swatting away flies and pressing cool cloth to the fevered fur. Once, the lioness's paw twitched and brushed her leg. But there was no claw. No growl. Just contact. By morning, Amalie was too tired to stand. Her body ached. Her stomach roared louder than any beast. But when she opened her eyes and saw the lioness still breathing, still alive, she smiled. "Looks like we're both still here," she said. And for the first time in days, the jungle whispered something warm. A beast wound, a woman's heart. The morning after the rescue was quiet, save for the rustling leaves and the slow, rhythmic breaths of the great lioness. Amalie sat nearby, legs crossed, eyes heavy with exhaustion but still alert. The creature lay still, her powerful body twitching from time to time, her injured legs stretched out like a question that had not yet been answered. Amalie leaned in and whispered, "You need a name, don't you? You've survived pain. You've endured suffering. That makes you strong." She reached into her memory, flipping through pages of old stories told beside cooking fires and riverbanks. "Zubri," she said softly. "It means strength. That's who you are now. Zubri." The lioness did not move, but something in the air seemed to shift, as if the jungle itself acknowledged the naming. Amalie smiled faintly. "Zubri it is. Healing takes time, and trust." Over the next few days, Amalie tended to Zubri's wounds with a gentle but confident touch. Her fingers, though worn and wrinkled, moved with the grace of someone who had healed countless creatures, birds with bent wings, children with snake bites, even men with more pride than sense. She packed the lioness's wound with a paste made from morino bark, aloe sap, and fermented wild garlic, a pungent combination that made even Zubri snort with annoyance. But she never lashed out. Not once. Strength? Amelie murmured one afternoon as she adjusted a fresh wrap. Isn't how hard you hit, it's how soft you stay when the world gives you every reason to go hard. Zubri blinked. Slow. Unafraid. Each day, the lioness grew stronger. Each night, the jungle whispered secrets into the wind, and Amelie listened. Fire of fires, and things lost. One evening, as fireflies danced above their little clearing and Amelie stirred a pot of bitter root stew, memories came knocking. She spoke to Zubri as if she were an old friend. I once had a son, she said suddenly, her voice distant. Strong-willed. Fast like a river in flood season. He'd climb the tallest mango trees just to bring me one fruit, not because I asked. Just because he could. Zubri lifted her head slightly. But he got sick, Amelie continued, her hands still stirring the pot. A fever. I tried every leaf, every root, every whisper I knew, but nothing worked. He slipped through my fingers like sand. She paused. After that, I stopped trying to heal people's hearts. Just their bodies. Felt safer. The lioness let out a low, humming breath, not quite a growl, not quite a sigh. But you, Amelie said, smiling weakly, you remind me that maybe I still can. Paw prints, the bond grows wild. Zubri could walk again by the end of the second week, limping, sure, but with a fierce determination that Amelie deeply respected. The lioness would nuzzle her softly in the mornings and rest her massive head near Amelie's lap at night. They had found a rhythm. Amelie learned to interpret the jungle silence. When danger was near, the wind would shift. When the forest was at peace, the birds would sing freely. Zubri would bring Amelie pieces of fresh meat, dropped at her feet like royal offerings. In return, Amelie would clean her fur with damp cloths and tell stories about the stars. One night, as they lay side by side beneath a blanket of moonlight, Amelie chuckled softly. Imagine what the villagers would say if they saw us now, she whispered. A woman, cast out as a curse, sharing warmth with the queen of the forest. Zubri gave a small, breathy grunt that could have easily passed for a laugh. Wolf faced the hyena ambush. It happened just after midnight. Amelie had dozed off, lulled by the sound of frogs and distant owls. But Zubri, ever alert, stiffened suddenly. Her ears twitched. Her body tensed. Amelie stirred. What is it? She whispered. That's when she heard them. Low, cackling growls. Snapping branches. Eyes, small and mean, blinking in the shadows. Hyenas. A pack of 5, maybe 6. Starving. Wild. And not at all afraid of an injured lioness and a frail old woman. Amelie stood quickly, grabbing her walking stick. Get back, she said firmly, but her heart thundered like a drum. Zubri growled and limped forward, baring her teeth, but the wound had taken its toll. She wasn't ready for a fight. The lead hyena stepped into the clearing. Its smile was all teeth. Its eyes held a kind of cruelty born from desperation. Amelie stood her ground. You'll have to go through me first, she snapped. She raised her stick, not much of a weapon, but it made her feel like a mountain instead of a rock. The hyena circled. Zubri lunged once, sending 2 of them skittering back, but her leg gave out beneath her. She collapsed with a pained roar. Amelie rushed to her, shouting, swinging her stick wildly at the snapping jaws. A sharp tooth grazed her arm, tearing her sleeve. Blood welled up. But she didn't stop. With a scream more fierce than any beast, she smacked one hyena across the snout, sending it yelping into the brush. You will not take her, she shouted. The fire in her eyes, the blood in her voice, it was enough. The hyenas hesitated. And from deep in the jungle, another roar echoed, far, but strong. Something large was nearby. The pack scattered. Amalie fell to her knees beside Zubri, panting, shaking, bleeding. "We made it," she whispered. "We are alive." Zubri licked her arm, gently, like a mother comforting a cub. Her golden eyes, filled with pain, locked onto Amalie's. And in that moment, the bond between them was sealed, not by survival, not by fear, but by loyalty. By love, in its wildest, purest form. Waning crescent moon, a heart reopened. Later, under the dim glow of the dying fire, Amalie cradled Zubri's massive head in her lap. She began to hum. A lullaby. One she hadn't sung in years, not since her son's final night. The jungle listened. The stars blinked. And the whispering wilds, fierce, unforgiving, unknowable, held its breath. Because in that small circle of clearing, beneath vines and moonlight and scars, a woman and a beast had found what the world had denied them. A place to belong echoes in the canopy. The jungle had grown quieter since the hyena attack, not in a way that felt empty, but reverent, like the forest itself had decided to walk softly in Amalie's presence. Zubri, still recovering but proud and watchful, limped beside her as they journeyed deeper into the whispering wilds. Neither of them quite knew where they were going, but both trusted the unseen hand guiding their path, the rustle in the leaves, the sudden pause in the wind, the feeling in their bones. One morning, after days of weaving through thickets and sleeping beneath stars, they came upon it. A clearing unlike any other. It wasn't just open, it glowed. The trees around it bent slightly inward, like they were bowing. The air shimmered with something unspoken. Strange flowers bloomed in patterns that looked almost deliberate. At the center stood a massive baobab tree, its trunk wide enough to hold a secret world. Zubri growled low, not from fear, but recognition. Amalie stepped forward, her eyes wide. "This is no ordinary place." As if in response, the ground beneath her hummed. Then the tree spoke. Deciduous tree, the spirit of the grove. Its voice rumbled from deep inside its trunk, old and slow, with the weight of centuries behind each word. "Amalie, child of earth and grief. You have come far. But the forest does not grant its heart freely." Amalie stumbled backward. Zubri stood protectively in front of her. "I mean no harm," Amalie said quickly, bowing her head. "We seek only peace." "Many seek peace," the tree murmured, "but what will you give in return? What will you sacrifice for balance?" Then the forest shimmered, and suddenly, Amalie was alone. Zubri had vanished. The jungle around her fell into a strange silence. "A test," she whispered, clutching her walking stick. The tree's voice echoed, but now it came from everywhere and nowhere. 3 trials. 1 soul. No strength of arm, only of heart. Will you face them? Amalie straightened. I will. Fire trial 1, the hungry flame. The clearing transformed into a thatched roof hut. Smoke filled the air. Inside, a young girl lay coughing, her skin burning with fever. A weeping mother knelt beside her. She's dying, the woman cried. You must help. Amalie rushed forward, but her herbs were gone. Her hands were empty. No medicine, the mother said. You must give her your warmth. Amalie looked at the child, tiny, trembling, eyes glassy. Then at her own body, frail, tired, aching. She lay beside the child and wrapped her arms around her. Take what I have left, she whispered. It's not much, but it's real. The hut vanished. Water wave trial 2, the drowned heart. Next, she stood on the bank of a dark river. In the water, a boy thrashed, screaming for help. No one else will come, a voice whispered. She didn't think. She dove. The river pulled her under, colder than death. Her bones screamed in protest, but she reached the boy and pushed him upward, using the last of her breath. The river faded. Dove Trial 3, the mirror of grief. Amelie stood before a still pool. In its surface, she saw her son, young, laughing, holding a mango. Her knees buckled. He should have lived, she sobbed. He should have lived. You may stay, the voice said. Live here in this memory. You've earned rest. Amelie touched the water. Her son looked at her. I miss you, she said. But I have someone else to protect now. She stood and walked away. The world returned. Zubri stood beside her again, panting as if she too had faced something deep. The baobab tree pulsed with golden light. You are worthy. Vines coiled gently around Amelie's feet, not to bind, but to bless. Leaves rustled above like a soft applause. The bark of the great tree peeled back slightly, revealing ancient symbols: sun, lion, woman. Then the tree's voice dropped to a whisper. Zubri is not only beast, but guardian. She was once a protector of this forest, until pain made her forget. You reminded her. And in doing so, reminded us all. Amelie turned to the lioness, stunned. Zubri met her eyes and, for a brief, flickering moment, her golden gaze glowed brighter than firelight. Sheaf of rice meanwhile, back in Embo. Far from the sacred glade, the village of Embo was unraveling. The river, once a lifeline, had shrunk to a trickle. Fish died. Fields turned to dust. The air felt cast, heavy, sour, wrong. Children cried with empty bellies. Goats bleated at dry troughs. Elders gathered under the acacia tree, whispering their fears. Ever since we banished Amelie. She was no witch. She was wisdom. We have angered the spirits. Even the chief, once proud and loud, now sat silent, chewing his lip. Should we bring her back? One asked. Would she come? Another whispered. No one answered. But the wind did. It hissed through the village like a warning. Herb bond grown sacred. Back in the glade, Amelie and Zubri sat beneath the glowing baobab, surrounded by strange flowers and hummingbirds that seemed half real, half dream. Amelie touched Zubri's mane. You're more than I thought. Zubri, ever silent, rested her great head against Amelie's chest. They didn't need words. Because when a soul is tested, and a bond is forged not from blood but choice, it echoes louder than any drum or chant. It becomes legend. They roar beneath the moon. Night fell gently over the whispering wilds, wrapping the forest in a dark velvet hush. Amelie sat by the glowing roots of the sacred baobab, gently grinding herbs between two stones. Zubri dozed nearby, her chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm, the great lioness finally at peace after weeks of pain and healing. The jungle, for the first time, felt like home. But the peace wouldn't last. Fog whispers in the trees. Far beyond the glade, in the village of Embo, fear had twisted into desperation. The crops are gone. The river is dry. Even the goats refused to eat. It was the village seer who whispered the final spark, it is her. Amelie. She walks with a lion and spirits. She has cursed us. The chief, face pale under firelight, nodded slowly. Then we must end the curse. And so, under the cloak of night, 5 hunters set out into the jungle, spears, nets, and knives at the ready. But they did not carry mercy. They carried fear. And fear always demands a sacrifice. Cyclone the warning wind. That night, Amelie awoke with a start. The wind had changed. It wasn't the gentle breeze that usually carried forest song. This one was sharp, uneasy, filled with rustling warnings and shadows that didn't belong. Zubri stood beside her, ears twitching, nose lifting into the air. They are coming, Amelie whispered. Men. From the village. Zubri let out a low growl. Amelie touched her mane softly. No. We do not fight them. Not unless we must. She stood, painfully slowly, and reached for her staff, not as a weapon, but as a symbol. A promise. If they come with hate, we'll meet them with truth. Crossed towards the ambush. They arrived just before moonrise. The glade, that sacred space of peace, exploded with chaos as the hunters burst through the undergrowth. There, one shouted. The witch and the beast. Spears flew. Nets tangled through the air. Amalie stepped forward, arms raised. Please. Listen. But fear makes poor listeners. Zubri leapt between her and the blades, her massive form colliding with two men, tossing them aside like dry leaves. She didn't kill. She defended. Amalie cried out, "Stop. This place is sacred." But the clearing had become a battleground. One hunter, a younger man, Madhu, who once received medicine from Amalie as a child, hesitated. His spear wavered. "I don't want to hurt you," he said. Amalie looked at him with tired eyes. "Then don't." In that moment, another hunter charged toward Madhu, blade drawn, intent on forcing him to act. Without thinking, Amalie stepped between them. The blade struck. Time slowed. Her body crumpled. "No!" Madhu screamed, catching her as she fell. Zubri roared, a sound that shook the glade and sent birds fleeing from treetops. Blood dripped from Amalie's side. Before anyone could move, another spear flew, and struck Zubri deep in the shoulder. She let out a deafening growl, staggered, but stayed on her feet, teeth bared, eyes blazing. Two more hunters turned and ran. The others stood frozen, breathless, staring at the woman who bled for them and the beast who protected her. Deciduous tree, the spirit appears. As Amalie lay dying, the roots of the sacred baobab began to glow. The leaves shimmered with golden light. The jungle fell into silence. And then the tree spoke. "Amalie. Child of sorrow. Healer of hearts. The time has come." The spirit of the grove appeared, not as a tree, but a being of light and leaf and memory. Its voice carried across the wind, gentle and mighty all at once. "You have passed every trial, even this one. Your courage, your compassion, have healed more than wounds." Amalie, eyes dimming, whispered, "Please, protect them. Protect the forest. Protect Zubri. You may have one final wish. Speak it now." She turned her face toward Zubri, who knelt beside her, bloodied and trembling. "I wish," Amalie's voice cracked. "I wish this forest and village would live in harmony. That the pain ends here." The spirit was silent for a moment, as if even it felt the weight of her words. "So it shall be." A warm light enveloped Amalie's body. Her breath slowed. Then stopped. Lion faced the roar that shook the moon. Zubri roared. Not in fury. Not in vengeance. But in grief. The kind of roar that splits mountains and hearts alike. The kind of sound that reaches the moon. The hunters dropped their weapons. Madhu wept openly, clutching Amalie's hand. Zubri lowered her head to Amalie's still chest and let out a final rumble, low and soft, like a lullaby for a soul returning home. Waxing crescent moon, the forest holds its breath. The spirit of the grove lifted Amalie's body gently in vines and laid her at the base of the sacred tree. Flowers bloomed instantly around her. The ground shimmered. She didn't disappear. She became part of the forest. A guardian. A guide. A whisper in the wilds. And Zubri, bloodied but alive, stood guard beside her, the living protector of the glade, her strength renewed by love and loss. The jungle watched. And the moon, high above, looked down in silence, as if in mourning, to roots that remember. The jungle was still. Not the fearful stillness that comes before a predator strikes, no. This was the kind that happens when something sacred has been done, and the world pauses to take a breath. At the heart of the whispering wilds, beneath the great baobab tree that pulsed softly with light, Amalie's body lay in peace. Vines had wrapped around her not to bind her, but to bless her. Flowers grew wild around her form, bright orange and soft violet, as if the earth itself was singing her to sleep. Her final wish still echoed in the leaves. Let the jungle and the village live in harmony. Let the pain end here. Deciduous tree, the heart of the grove. The spirit of the grove, ancient and glowing with the wisdom of 1,000 seasons, emerged one last time. Amalie, healer of wounds, worker of shadows, we grant your wish. The ground trembled gently as her body faded, not into nothing, but into light. Her soul seeped into the roots of the tree, into the soil, into the wind that whispered through the canopy. She became the heart of the grove. A guardian not in body, but in spirit. From that moment on, the sacred glade glowed softly even in the darkest nights, a place where silence became comfort and the air tasted like memory. Lion faced Zubri ascends. Zubri stood watch as it happened. She did not cry. She did not roar. She simply sat beside the tree and pressed her forehead to the earth. A soft breeze stirred the leaves. It coiled around her like a gentle embrace. Her wounds shimmered with golden light and disappeared, as if time itself bowed to her loyalty. Her fur began to glow, not blindingly, but with the soft pulse of a distant star. Her paws left no prints. Her eyes gleamed like twin suns through a morning fog. And then, without sound or farewell, Zubri disappeared into the mist. A spirit once more. But not lost. She was now the watcher of balance, roaming the jungle unseen, protecting all that lived in harmony, and roaring only when justice was needed. Bow and arrow the return. The hunters who had brought blood to the glade staggered back to Embo, silent, hollow-eyed, and ashamed. The jungle had let them live, not out of mercy, but out of purpose. Madu, the youngest, stood before the elders and dropped his spear at their feet. She died for us, he said. She asked for peace even as she bled. We must honor her. The villagers listened. And for once, truly listened. No more blaming. No more fear disguised as righteousness. Just guilt. And the chance to do better. So they walked, men, women, elders, and children, through the jungle paths they once feared, carrying woven baskets of food, tools, and seedlings. They came not with fire but with flowers. And when they reached the glade, they wept. They knelt before the baobab and laid offerings of woven cloth, beads, and dried herbs, the same ones Amalie once carried, mocked, then honored. Together, they built a shrine of stone and song, placing it beneath the tree where her light still lingered. Sheaf of rice, new ways, old roots. Seasons passed. The village of Embo changed. Fields were rotated. Trees were planted for each one cut. Children were taught the names of herbs and the stories of animals. No one spoke ill of the jungle anymore. It wasn't feared. It was family. They didn't call her, the nameless one, anymore. They called her Amalie the Wise. Amalie the Healer. Amalie, heart of the grove. Wind faced a whisper on the wind. Years later, a young girl named Naya wandered past the village's edge. Her feet bare, her eyes wide. She was chasing a butterfly that sparkled like firelight. The butterfly led her to the glade. There, beneath the great tree, she stood in awe, her small frame dwarfed by the trunk that shimmered faintly with ancient magic. She placed her hand on the bark. A breeze swirled around her. And in it, a voice, soft as petals, strong as stone. Kindness is never forgotten. Naya smiled. And somewhere, deep in the misty folds of the jungle, Zubri's eyes opened, glowing, calm, watchful. Of the end.